like to welcome Emil Michael. He's the Chief Business Officer at Uber, and Uber is definitely big name here, and you guys have completely changed how the world moves, technically. And I'd like to start with Malaysia. It has been quite a big year for Uber in Malaysia, seeing how we had our pension fund investing $30 million in what is seemed as a non-traditional asset. How do you feel about that, and what are the opportunities that you're seeing here?
Well, thanks for having me on the show, Cynthia. I appreciate it. And exciting to be here at the Global Entrepreneurship Community Conference. It's great to be a part of what we think is one of the most exciting parts of Asia. Here in Malaysia, for entrepreneurs to be building businesses and for us to be building a business here as well. Co-op's investment and Khazanah's investment in us also, I think, shows sort of an openness by the government here to supporting the new economy business models. And we expect and hope that we'll get favorable legislation alongside of that. So the notion that the Malaysian government wants to support us financially is great, because we think of ourselves as serving the countries that we operate in, and if we succeed at that, then every Malaysian will have a stake in our success through these investments in Uber.
Oh, that's a nice way of putting it, definitely. Yeah. And also we are seeing another kind of validation coming from the government, a partnership, well, I wouldn't say partnership, incentives given to the B40 households, yes. The bottom 40, and the Prime Minister is looking to look at Uber to positively impact social economic statuses of Malaysians. Yeah. And what are some of their plans there? I mean, share with us, what's the idea?
I'm really excited about that. I mean, it's very rare that you get a government that thinks very progressively, not only about transportation, but how to encourage businesses to give economic opportunity to those who need it. So this idea of giving the B40 or the BRIM an incentive to build their own business, to essentially becoming a driver with a car and earning their own income on Uber at a time that's convenient for them with the flexibility is really exciting, and we're honored to be a part of it. And I think what you'll see in the coming months is us rolling out specifics and details about how that's gonna work. And if we have our dream, then you'll have hopefully tens of thousands of drivers taking advantage of this program and driving on Uber and making money on it.
Do you have a time frame? When will that kick off? Or?
The budget announcement, I think, just happened recently. Yes. So you'd have to tell me from a Malaysian standpoint when those things happen. But we're going to be urging it to be done as soon as possible.
All right. Yeah. Well, this idea of definitely is also looking at how to recognize local problems and solving it. And Uber is also big on that. I believe you are also working on somewhat similar partnership in India with Tata. Is that right?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, the partnership in India is with Tata, and it's similarly trying to get people who need opportunity into the system. This particular thing that the Prime Minister announced is sort of in cooperation with the government and with sort of government financial support. So it's unique and takes it to the next level relative to what we've done with Tata in India.
All right. Well, speaking of that public-private partnership, there's often talk about how we need that participation from all levels to really raise that ecosystem, and Uber has been a really great example of that working partnership. Yeah. And what kind of other opportunities do you see that happening in this part of the world? Yeah,
it's a great question. I think Uber operates in 72 countries around the world, and the company is only about 5 or 6 years old. So what we've learned and why we've been able to do that is to be successful in these cities and countries, you have to be a citizen of that city and country. So we like to say that we hire the sons and daughters of that country that we operate in to operate that business and give them a lot of autonomy. And when you do that, you start finding opportunities like the co-op opportunity investing in us, like this announcement by the PM to subsidize the purchase of vehicles. And there's going to be many more coming as we roll out new businesses in this country. So I'm pretty optimistic that we're going to have a whole long list of things to do once favorable ride-sharing legislation or regulations pass, which we feel is imminent.
Well, for us in Malaysia, we are also working towards that happening. Yeah. And speaking of Uber as a whole, this has certainly revolutionized the shared economy, or rather gig economy, made possible thanks to internet. And with Uber being something that people look up to when it comes to disruption, technology, innovation, tell us, the Uber's universe. What is innovation to Uber, and what's next? What can we expect?
Well, I think what innovation is to Uber is to go back to what we call first principles. And the first principle is people want to get from point A to point B the fastest and cheapest way they can. And if you focus on that, independent of what the taxi regulations might be, like how do you provide that need? And so when you start with that, and that principle that you know people will love, riders and drivers, then you back into, well, what kind of regulatory and legal and financial environment can support that? So we think about innovating, it's not sort of disruption just to disrupt, it's what's the core value we're trying to provide. And when you do that, good things hopefully happen. So what's coming next is once you have ride sharing established, which is people can push a button and get a ride and drivers can drive on their own time and make their own money, then what you do is start to put more than one person in a car. So instead of 20 people in 20 cars, you try to put 20 people in 6 cars. That reduces congestion. It takes a lot of math and science to make that happen.
Is that what Uber is heading to next?
That's where Uber's heading to next. And then after that, you have lots of technologies improving maps, making cars safer by having sort of software try to make human mistakes less, because a lot of people still have car accidents. So you try to reduce those things. And so you'll see us innovating in more people in fewer cars, and then safer cars that can drive themselves in certain scenarios to improve safety.
Yeah, that I want to talk about. And this is something really new, looking to introduce self-driving taxis. Is still in an experimental stage?
Self-driving Ubers is still experimental all over the world, yeah.
Okay, tell us about that. I mean, that kind of thought process and introducing something that's not in the market yet. I mean, given a big company like that, I mean, testing something in a familiar space, it is a lot of certain pressure from investors.
Well, so in the technology business, if you're not innovating, you're going backwards, is our view, and that's sort of proven true. So what we think about is you have your main business today, which is ride sharing. And then our business becomes ride sharing with more people and fewer cars. And then eventually it'll be self-driving cars. It's a long-term vision. So you have a percentage of what your budget allocated to research and development. That's long-term thinking, big, bold bets. Kind of like Amazon, Google, and these companies have done a long time. They sort of have their main business and they bet at moonshots. And I think that's how we think about innovation too. And I think this world, while it's far away, is a world that is safer, is sort of better for cities, less congested, cheaper for people. So I think we'll always keep my eye on the long term while focusing on the near term.
All right. So there's a constant evolution within Uber to be a multiple player. So what's the end game here for Uber? I mean, maybe too early to ask, but we are certainly excited to know what Uber has because, as I mentioned, we look at Uber as the disruptor. Yeah.
Well, our motto has always been transportation as reliable as running water for everyone, everywhere. And transportation not only of people, but of things. And if you accomplish that vision, you can see a lot of different things happen there. So now we move people. Today we move food as well, and we'll be moving things. And so anything that needs to get from one part of the city to the next in the most efficient, safe way possible, that's what we're going to be focused on.
Okay. Yeah. And what about in Southeast Asia, 600 million population? Certainly a lot of people are trying to capitalize on ASEAN's growth story. Yeah. What is your game plan here?
Our game plan here is basically to focus on building the core ride-sharing business in the markets that allow us to flourish. So Malaysia is one of them. We think this probably could be, along with Philippines, one of the most advanced sort of governments and regulatory structures that allow us to thrive, the ride-sharing industry. So you want to double down in those places, and you want to make sure they're open and that riders see the benefit of that and drivers see the benefit of that. And in places that are not as open, we're still going to be fight to try to get them open and convince them that we bring good things to their city or country. So our game plan in the region is to work and double down on places where we're permitted to grow and permitted to serve that city, and the other ones try to break in and try to get there.
Places where you are not in yet, apart from regulation, what are some of the other challenges or pain points going into a new market?
Yeah. Well, I think going into a new market, in some ways you have to teach people how to use this and when to use this and why it's valuable, right? So it's amazing that as much as Uber's in the news, you go into a new city, people are like, what is this and why do I need it, right? And you have a team that works with the institutions in that city or riders and drivers and tells them why this is a benefit. And then you kind of let it out in the wild and you see how they use it, and then you sort of promote different use cases. So I think the way we think about it in these places is still you have a lot of education to do. We're still only 5 years into this company, and we've got a long time to go, and lots of different services to provide. So it's education and working with cities to sort of adopt frameworks that allow that.
And I'd like to get your thoughts on financial inclusion. Yeah. Now, the reason I'm asking this because while Uber, I believe, has introduced cash payment, if you look at Malaysia and Singapore, yes, we are in a way a little more advanced in terms of, say, credit card penetration. Yeah. Indonesia, 1% out of 300 million population. How do you seek to tap into that? You spoke about education. That's a long way to go, me speaking about such a giant market like Indonesia.
Well, I mean, that's why you have to have cash, is because in markets where that's the only option, we want to be able to provide service. But I think the way most economies are going are to have electronic forms of payment, not necessarily credit card. So what we've learned from China is that with the payment methods there, Alipay in particular, they've sort of skipped credit card. And they've gone to all your wallets on your phone. The Prime Minister talked about today in his speech how innovative and forward-thinking that is. And I think you're going to see lots of countries sort of leapfrog and to do those kinds of payments, and we're supportive of that. All
right. Let's talk about competition. Yeah. There are a number of ride-sharing apps and companies in this part of the world, and staving off stiff competition. And on top of that, massive overhead costs, if I may put it that way. And how is Uber looking at the sustainability of the business model? Because that has been one of the pain points that we have known about Uber's business.
Well, I think a lot of the money that gets spent by Uber or any of the competitors is educating the market. It's giving people a free ride to try it for the first time. We're giving drivers enough incentive to get on the system. And so a lot of money goes in that, and that's not wasted money. That's sort of how you get people familiar with the service. I think once you're familiar with the service, all the businesses in ride-sharing are going to have to rationalize and figure out how to make money. We're businesses, we have investors over time. And I think everyone in this region understands whether it's our competitor based in Singapore or one in Indonesia. It doesn't matter where you're based. It matters, can you provide a product that people love and make a profit for your investors ultimately? So that's what we're focused on.
Okay. Now let's also talk about you. I mean, you have quite a incredible journey. I would say you started off with banking, I suppose, Silicon Valley to White House, and Uber. No, what's the story there? I mean, it's interesting to look at you as also entrepreneurs looking at you as somebody who has taken on multiple roles and, if I may put it, thrive in a sense. How is it for you?
I was born in Egypt, and my parents immigrated to the U.S. and I was just thankful to have the chance to grow up in somewhere that valued what I could do as opposed to where I came from. And I was lucky enough to have a good family and be in good schools where I had the opportunity to do whatever I want. My parents were scientists, and here I am at Uber, an e-hailing company. So, and after having worked at the White House and a couple other startups, so I guess the one thing I would tell other entrepreneurs that has always served me well is be resilient. When you get knocked down, get back up. Don't lick your wounds, or I guess lick your wounds, get back up and keep going. And I think opportunity will find you if you're willing to go find it yourself.
All right, so Emil, first time to tell this to the audience, will be speaking at the Global Entrepreneurship Community 2016, whereby a lot of our audience will not be able to be here to hear you speak. But can you share some insights into what you will be talking about, and what do you see is the future of ride-sharing and transport?
Yeah. Well, I think what I'll be talking about is what is the spirit of entrepreneurship? What does it mean? It's a nice word. Everyone likes to use it. But what does it mean? It means inventing something in one part, but then executing against it. There's a lot of ideas out there. But being an entrepreneur is not just coming up with ideas. It's also figuring out how to execute them. And that's often very complex. There's a technical component. There's working with governments. There's working with stakeholders, investors. So being able to learn all those disciplines is what truly separates entrepreneurs from just people who have ideas. So that's what I'll be talking about. And in terms of the future of transport, it's like I said, it's get the core ride-sharing thing to work, because it's been proven in 72 countries, over 400 cities, that people want it. once you get that to work, then you can go into shared rides, and then you can go into autonomous vehicles, and then the world becomes really interesting. So we're just trying to get past step one and then step two now, and into the next phase of Uber's history.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. It was really great to hear you talk about Uber and also yourself, and good luck with the GEC. And that was a special recording from the Global Entrepreneurship Community. This is for Agenda Awani. Again, my name is Cynthia, and I'll see you soon in the next episode.